Hello. So, in this section, we are going to be doing really a deep dive into personal stewardship. So, this is how you care for yourself, what your daily routines are, nourishment, boundary, rest. And then we're going to be working with your emotions and subconscious in this one as well. So, let's get into it. All right. So, really, this is more than just about calling in how you tend to your whole being, right? This isn't just your body. This isn't just going to a spa day or even going to yoga. Like, this is more in depth than that. So, what really needs to be happening when you are really wanting to create space for more income, right? We're trying to get to those 5K months, and you must have some kind of self care structure to your business. It's part of your business strategy. And this is something that I am really, really big on. It doesn't have to look the same for everyone. In fact, it's going to look different for every person. But there are some fundamentals, right? You're going to want to have a process for taking care of your emotional well being. You're obviously, like we talked about in the last section, having that spiritual connection and bringing that in. And this is where we're going to bring it all together. We are also going to be really focusing on working with the subconscious things that run your business sometimes, right? Because we all have those moments where we get triggered, we're uncomfortable, and we're like, what the heck is going on? And it is frustrating. So, what I really want you to do today is just relax and listen. I'm going to walk you through a process. It's called the Why Method. This is something that I started doing kind of on my own randomly when I like years ago, and it is something that has really improved my connection to myself and helped me work through a lot of my um, daily emotional kind of ups and downs. Because some of us are, maybe we have a little bit more emotion. We're emotional beings, and there's nothing wrong with that. We need to find a way to honor that to really support our business so we can show up in that fullness, in that, you know, I'm taking care of myself, but I can still show up for my business, right? Because that's what we're really working towards is creating that the access to that consistency where you're not like wavering back and forth, like, oh, the fear came up, I don't want to post today, right? Or oh, I'm scared, or I'm sad about this person, the version of me that I'm leaving behind. And we need to really sit with all of that and work through those things in order to lean into deeper aspects of ourselves. And really that's where you're going to see your business grow and expand, right? That's where you're literally creating space for all of these things to flow, right? The not just the income, but like the clients. And if you want more of that connection with your clients to deeper serve, to make a deeper impact, right? And self-love is not a luxury. It is a leadership necessity. It is something that you absolutely need to be doing to hold all of this, right? To allow all of this to flow through you and through your business. Um, I think a lot of people have turned self love into like a luxury, that it's something extra that you pay for. And I'm like, nope, it's just it needs to be part of you as a person. It needs to become who you are. And while you don't have to, the best way to love yourself is to be yourself, right? And so there's that act of becoming the person that you say, oh, I love you, and you try to show yourself you love you, but like, are you just yourself, right? That's where we need to anchor that in. And that's something we're going to be talking about in the strategy section, which will be the third part, is how to anchor that voice of yours and how to be yourself and still be able to call in and also speak to your audience in a way that really, really makes them say, oh, cool, I feel seen, I feel heard, I feel chosen, right? They want to feel chosen too. So This is all part of how it all comes together. All right. So now we are going to walk through the why method. So this is a really quick breakdown of this. So feel free to come back to this and use this because I'm going to walk you through an example as well. So this is going to be when you feel triggered or when you're feeling like resistance in your business and you're like, I don't want to do this. And instead of giving into the fear, I want you to take a moment and I want you to get curious about where this is coming from, right? So, curiosity is the easiest form of self discovery. Okay. So, with our subconscious, we can't always access it in a direct sense. Okay. So, we kind of have to talk to it. We have to become curious with it, right? And we have to say, what is this? Why is this here? Right? So let's walk through this example. So, say you are feeling fear, okay? Something comes up, say the situation is like not even necessarily related to your business. We're going to use something personal too, because sometimes that can also affect your business. But say, you get a notice for jury duty, okay? So you are just, terrified of going to jury duty. And you're like, where is this coming from, right? Why am I feeling so afraid of going to jury duty, right? And then we're going to ask, okay, so why, right? Why do I feel this way? And you're going to come up with your answer. Say, okay, well, I'm, afraid of driving down there. I don't want to go. I don't want to spend my time, right? Those are going to be your really surface answers that your mind is going to give you. And then you're going to say, okay, well, why don't I want to drive down there? Why don't I want to, why don't I want to be a part of that process? Right. And then you're going to ask again, right? Because there's going to be an answer that comes from that. And that answer may be, oh, I feel really uncomfortable in large groups of people. I feel really uncomfortable in that situation. Um, and it may be something even still surface, right? So we're going to go even deeper with that. And we're going to ask again, okay, well, why are you afraid of being in a room like that with a group of people, right? Where is that fear really lying? And the answer is most likely that there is a fear of judgment, right? And so your brain is just projecting onto this situation your subconscious fears, okay? So if you're afraid of being judged, right, which is something that also happens in our business, right? So you're afraid of being judged, right? And then you say, you're going to ask again, why am I afraid of being judged? What is coming up for me? What is happening inside of me that I feel so uncomfortable with being judged, right? And maybe then the answer comes back to you and it's like, well, I just really feel like everything is always my fault and I don't want to feel guilty for I don't want to feel responsible for accusing someone of doing something that they didn't do, right? There's a lot of responsibility in that space, right? Where you're like, what happens if they actually are innocent and I'm accusing them of that specific thing where they are now, going to be punished for something they didn't actually do, right? And then you're going to ask yourself, how does this relate to me, right? How does that relate to me and my life? Okay. Because you'll start to see the pattern once you start unraveling this. And the pattern here is, I'm also giving you a personal example. So the pattern here is actually that there is a fear of being accused yourself of things that you didn't do and having to take responsibility for things that weren't really your fault, right? And so there's that deep core wound that is coming to the surface, Okay. So gently, as we approach these like deeper things, you're going to feel stuff and you're going to have emotions and and that's okay. But that's your kind of core thing. But then we need to go one step further. Okay. So this is, even though we have now discovered this amazing realization that maybe it's, oh, okay, so it's because I'm afraid of being judged and accused of something that I didn't do. But the next layer is what's beyond that, right? You're avoiding guilt, right? So the reality is you're not just wanting to not go to jury duty, you're trying to avoid guilt as a feeling, period, right? So your brain is your subconscious is redirecting you away from feeling guilty because the only story it has to tell is that in fact you should feel guilty for everything because everything used to be your fault, right? When obviously this was like when you were a kid, your parents couldn't take responsibility for themselves. So they would put that back on you. That guilt is what you're trying to avoid because when you feel that guilt, it feels like it takes your power away. You feel powerless in those moments. And it is terrifying, right? It is terrifying to feel powerless. And that is what we are trying to get to, right? What is that core understanding, that core feeling, and that story that you're telling yourself or that has been written for you, through conditioning that's really that's keeping you from moving through this. Okay. So now we have this beautiful understanding of what it is and where this is coming from. But we need to then reframe this truth. Okay. And this is something that I'm going to add in here, a subconscious journey. It will be in the email that is linked through with this whole piece. And I want you to, when you get to this, you're going to do this subconscious journey with that specific belief. Because what I want you to do is it's going to actually help you rewire that and into this new truth that you want to believe instead. Okay. So the truth that we really want to believe is that we are able to be seen and judged for our own actions, and we are not responsible for the reactions of others, right? We are powerful in a way that we are sovereign and able to maintain and stand up for ourselves, right? To speak up and say, you know what, that isn't my fault. This is because now you're an adult, right? So in this situation, as an adult, you have the ability to speak up for yourself and say, well, this is not my fault, right? And that is not something you can accuse me of because I did not do it. So, what, in a really simple way, what you can do is you can then choose the new belief. So, in this case, we're just going to keep it really simple. We're just going to say, I choose to believe that I am powerful and safe to speak up for myself. Okay. And what you want to do is you want to actually say that belief out loud. And this is something that I walk you through in the subconscious journey that I'm adding in here is you will be able to walk through that and then it will give you more detailed instructions on how to really rewire this into your mind and help you really hold in your body this new truth because it's not just about the mind, it's also about integrating it into your body. But speaking this truth out loud is going to absolutely start changing your brain and it will start rewiring those neural pathways. This is again not the quick process. There's really no quick way to change your full subconscious, but the more that you correct the old beliefs and the more you are curious about these old beliefs, the more you can really step into an understanding, and it will be easier to catch these moments where you just get like sucked down into, the rabbit hole. And what comes of that is really like stepping back out of that rabbit hole and coming back to say, okay, who am I now? Where am I? Right? Coming back to presence. And how you do that is by speaking your new truth out loud in this present moment. And it takes time. It does take time for your brain to fully rewire. Also, taking actions that support this also helps because it proves not just to your mind, but to your nervous system that in fact you are safe to be doing it. So it may take a little bit of time. You can be gentle with it, but absolutely take those actions to reinstate and reintegrate the new beliefs that you are really wanting to hold. Okay. So, kind of going a little bit deeper with this, the way you hold yourself, your voice, and your boundaries and your beliefs also determines the energy that your business holds. So, when you're nurturing your inner self, right, your wealth, your confidence, and, you know, and clarity, like these things naturally rise to the surface, right? Because that is what you're putting emphasis on. So, while you're in this state of curiosity, right, you need to then, this actually, I forgot I put this in here, but we're going to elaborate on how to integrate this final step is once a day, you are going to do for 2 weeks, you are going to say 10 times with presence and meaning the new belief that you have that you would prefer to believe instead. So, what you're doing here is really, really holding that new aspect of yourself, and you are giving yourself space to become that person. And yes, this is just, more of a mental process, but I want you to understand that your mind and your body talk to each other. This isn't like your nervous system does not run your whole body. Um, Most of the time, there is actually subconscious thoughts and beliefs that are triggering your body, right? And that activates your nervous system and then creates that fight or flight. So they go back and forth, they talk to each other. It's not just like a one-way thing. Your mind is a part of your body. So your mind is part of your nervous system. So we need to be accessing this aspect of your nervous system in order to really integrate and hold all of these things together. Okay. Not to mention when you realize that you have some semblance of control over your mind and what you think and what you believe, it creates such a deep, profound shift in who you are and how you move. Okay. So, this is how you move as an individual. It's going to help your confidence, it's going to help your business because you are finally feeling like, oh, I am in charge. Yes, we acknowledge all the things that come to the surface. We hold all the feelings. We feel all the things. We understand and we look at the thoughts and we become curious, right? But we do not need to let it run our life. And that is what this is about. This is about you taking back that control so that you can move through things in a way that doesn't keep you from your business. Because I know so many people get stuck in their business because they are letting their feelings run them, they're letting their emotions run everything, and they're letting their thoughts tell them that why bother, right? And this is normal. It's not, there's nothing to be mad at or nothing to be shameful of. This is just the way that we are, and it doesn't mean it has to be the way you have to continue to move. So now I want to give a little bit of depth on especially like the oracle aspect. So because you're probably also very intuitive, right? We have this, there's a lot of us, especially, The intuitives tend to be a little more reserved. You may just kind of want to hang out by yourself a lot, and there is nothing wrong with that. Okay. There's nothing wrong with wanting to have your alone time and all of that. But true connection is also a part of being a good steward for yourself, right? Because we all need healthy connections. And I'm going a little bit off on a tangent, but this needs to also be said. So, the Oracle is not one who just sat at her altar all day. Okay. She wasn't just sitting there doing her thing all alone. She had specific opening rituals and clothing rituals for her channel so she could. There were moments where she was very much involved in the community. She was a part of the world around her. And maybe that community was just a few friends, but the Oracle, in this sense, actually did have a big role in the seers. They were huge aspects of building and constructing societies. Okay. So it may not have been like she was out there doing all the things, but they were instrumental in being a part of society. And so the same is true for us, especially as entrepreneurs. Like we are constantly, you're probably getting ideas. You have probably a certain level of energy for certain things. You love to be of service, right? So you have the same qualities as this oracle. And I'm not saying you have to take on the whole world. I'm just saying in your capacity, it is time to step out of being so internalized. So what we need to be doing is as these, beautiful, sensitive and intuitive people is we need to also be stepping out of our comfort zones a little bit, right? We need to be working with human beings. We need to be human beings because we're not just business owners, we're also people, right? We need to really get back into touch with being a part of people again. And I think that's something that a lot of us have lost over the years. And especially being an online business owner, that is something that's going to be really important is that you spend time with real people, real friends. I'm not saying that we can't have real connections online, that we don't cherish our clients and all of those things. We absolutely do. But we also need to be making sure we are a part of, even if it's only one friend, you need to be making sure you are inviting those people in, creating relationships and working with, speaking up and boundaries, not just in your business, but within your personal space, right? And, kind of creating this rhythm that separates your work life and from, and your personal life, but then also allows you to replenish you, right? So find those friendships that replenish you, go for a walk with someone. It doesn't have to be these elaborate things. It can just be simple, like, going for a walk, watching a movie, spending time with, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a friend. This can also be, intimate relationships, however you choose, but you do need to have a level of personal connection and and connection within the community. Yes, the community can be something that you feel is online. That is fine, but being a part of your actual space and community is absolutely necessary too, to some degree. Obviously, you are in charge of how that looks and what that feels like. But um, the other aspect of this is learning boundaries because people actually, for a long time, I know I even thought this for a long time, but I see that people are looking at boundaries and structure as a kind of a something that hinders them. Um, but really, what this does is boundaries are something that, and I'm talking about business boundaries. Yes, we can talk about personal boundaries too. They obviously also apply. But for this, I want to talk specifically about your business boundaries and business structures. They aren't necessarily there to restrict you, they're there to create a protection for you so that they can actually support your purpose and your power, right? We want to be empowered in our business. And if we have all this stuff like leaking around and our energy is leaking out, then we can't hold that space for our clients. We can't hold that space for ourselves. You know, the money channels are going to struggle. We're going to have those moments where we're like, I can't do this, right? And so that's where those boundaries come in. That's where the structure comes in, and it is beautiful because it really supports you and protects you. And honestly, it gives you so much space to expand your creativity. It gives you more openness so that you can really step into another level of your business as far as being more creative, being more open, and coming up with new ways, not necessarily new offers, but always finding new ways of going deeper. It allows you to have that deeper self discovery because you feel safe to go within, because you have set these specific boundaries. Not just, I mean, yes, obviously, I will advocate for personal boundaries too, like in your relationships and that sort of thing, but also in your business. And this is something that I think people really don't think about because we're like, oh, it's fine, it's me. Like I don't need boundaries. I'm like, yeah, but you do. So we're gonna go into what those boundaries look like. Okay, so these are some of the ones that have helped me the most and what I have seen help my clients. All right, so sticking to your plan. This boundary is honestly, it is number one because I have found this in my life. This is actually something my husband told me a long time ago. And the more I have implemented this in my life and my business, this is the most golden piece of advice ever. You have the strategy, but I'm going to ask you, how long did you actually implement it for? Right? How long before you ghosted your launch? How long before you decided to revamp or change your programs, your offers, redo your website, right? So if you're one of those kind of like serial changers, it's okay. That's not bad, but I do need you to give yourself time to really give things a fair try, right? So you need to make sure that you are giving yourself a couple of months to do something, whether it's a launch, whether it's a program, right? If nothing is working, then you take time to reevaluate. But don't give up so quickly just because the first four posts you made, your offer isn't running, people aren't running into, buy your offer. It's okay. Like give yourself some time to work and reevaluate what's actually happening. Look at it statistically, right? What is working, what's not working. Okay. The next one is seriously turn on do not disturb for all of your business apps, like outside of your working hours. You can pick whatever working hours you want. You can work from 8 p.m. till 1 in the morning. If that's what best is, that's where you shine and you feel good doing certain tasks, go for it. But you need to make sure you are silencing certain notifications. Get off of social media, stop scrolling, and stop looking for all the answers online. Don't answer emails. Do not do, even if you have like Telegram or Box or whatever, stop looking at that stuff outside of your business hours. And this is something I've like even really had to implement, and I've been to be a little bit more like strict with myself on. So, I mean, don't think this is an ongoing practice, okay? Because we're still human, but you really need to make sure you are taking time to reset your energy and come back into you as a person, right? Because having an online business where you work from your house, most likely, you are constantly involved in all the things, right? You are probably still thinking about your business. You're like, what kind of content do I need to create tomorrow? What's this? What's that? You need to give yourself space away from that because when you don't, that's where you get the overwhelm because you're just constantly on. You have no boundaries. Social media is overwhelming and inundating. Honestly, read a book, watch a movie, just give yourself some space from your phone. So I actually have I have a work setting on my phone. So when I'm at work, it pops on for my work hours, which I have during the day. So I think it comes on at like 8 o'clock and it turns, it goes to my personal at 6. So I have all my work ones that are set up to give me notifications, all of that stuff, right? And then after 6 o'clock, all the notifications stop. I don't get I don't get notified on Instagram. I don't get notified. Now, if I go on there for my own personal thing, fine, but I don't get those things. And it has helped me so much. And it has helped me really regulate myself and feel more stable in my own energy, my nervous system. And it helps you really to remain more sovereign too, because you're not looking for all these different things all the time, trying to get answers, right? So your answers are inside of you most of the time. Yes, we can learn from people, we can get ideas and get inspiration from people, but 90% of what you really need is in here. And you know it because you have experienced those little breakthroughs or those really cool ideas that come through. And that's coming through when you are taking that time to step away from your business. So again, this kind of adds to it. Set specific times that you are going to check in and respond. And also explain this to your clients. Tell them when you will be available and when you won't be available, because those things are absolutely necessary. And just be straight up in the beginning. Say, like, these are my hours for Telegram and Voxer. This is my, dedicated time where I will reply to you on, social media or, through email, whatever your preferred method of communication is fine. You also need to be honoring your natural rhythm. Okay. So this is something that I think we kind of have a mental thing on, because many of us came from like corporate jobs, right? Or we had traditional jobs where we were, you know, like we had to work certain hours. And so we kind of have become trained like, okay, well, I have to wake up at 8. I have to do this. I have to do that. And then I start, working at 9 and I've got these. It's like, you know what? No, if you're not a morning person, if you don't like the mornings, like you may even wake up early, but you don't really like to be active in the morning, don't. Like, take your time in the morning. If you choose to make some content in the morning, that's fine. But like, you don't feel like you need to just get up and run to your business. Like, that's part of you creating space for yourself, right? So, um, you need to be creating the space in your business. Like, so many people are saying, oh, I want to have space. I want to have space and I want to have freedom. And I'm like, okay, well, where are you creating it? This is where you create that, right? You create that in, giving yourself permission to start your day slowly, to just have a cup of tea, sit outside, enjoy the sunshine in the morning, right? And, giving yourself that space. This is where you do that. And if you prefer to work in the evenings, like, to be honest with you, I work really well from about 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Those are like my best hours. I do so good in that space. I feel like I'm very productive. I'm really focused. And, in the beginning of the day, like, I'm a little bit slower. I do create content and I put the content out. I take a little break. But I just kind of have found, I found when I felt good working or felt good and enjoyed what I was doing, right? Instead of feeling, and like when I had the most energy for certain things. Okay. Um, this is something that I also really like to do. These can be super simple, but creating opening and closing rituals. So for me, my first social media post of the day is that's me saying I'm open, right? That's me opening my business to the world. And then, at the end of the day, I don't really do much other than I go and change my clothes. It's I when I'm done working, I go and I change I change out of my, like, nice whatever clothes, because I do try to like, I take a shower in the morning, I get dressed, like I'm actually going to go somewhere. And then I just enjoy my PJs when I'm done working. And sometimes I'll make a cup of tea. Sometimes, depending on what time of year it is, but you can create your own, but it doesn't have to be elaborate. It can be very simple, but just ways of you saying, okay, that energy is closed. And now I'm going to start, I'm into my personal life now, right? Okay. So now we're going to get a little bit more into the business side. When you set your price, stick with it. Okay. This is going to be something we're going to go through in actually how to come up with a price, because I think that's where most people don't feel like there's a really good way of pricing, and there's no real strategy for pricing, although there is. It's very subjective in especially like the service industry, because we kind of get to set our own prices, right? And we get to call those things. And so I think the pricing is something that we get a little wonky on, and we're like not very confident in our prices sometimes, because we're like, well, we don't see proof. Your brain's looking for proof that, oh, this is safe, this is okay to charge. But the reality is like when you look through it through pricing on a logical lens, you can absolutely come to a space where you're like, okay, this is a healthy price. This is something that I feel safe charging. This is something where I feel like I'm getting, my time is honored. That is important. So, but what I need you to do is when you walk through that, you need to stick with what price you pick. And it's gonna be hard, because there's gonna be times when you're gonna be like, oh, maybe I should discount this. Oh, maybe I should do that. Nope, 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 nope. You stick to it. And on those calls, or if in the DMs and someone asks you like what the cost is, and you're just going to say the cost is, this is what I charge for this program. And if you're giving them options, great, list the options. And you simply just stop talking after that. You don't need to justify it. You don't need to over explain anything. You just say, this is the price. I have, if you choose to have payment plans, you say, I have payment plans available. If you have like Afterpay or Klarna, you can offer that as well. There's nothing wrong with being accommodating, but you don't need to discount your offers in order to actually create support. Okay. You can still hold your price, and you can find a way to work with their income if it's something that they're willing and they're really wanting to do. But do not discount your offers in those moments. You got to stick with it, and that one's gonna be hard. And if it doesn't work, and sometimes you slip and you're like, I discounted it, don't be hard on yourself. Just learn from it and move on. The next thing, I think I already kind of touched on this, but we want to set those initial expectations with your clients, right? Not just the communication, but then also like, what are they, um, what are they really going to be getting out of this, right? What is their expectations? And this is something that you can even put into your contract, is like what your clients' responsibilities are. Be clear and outline them, because if you are expecting them to show up in a, kind of learning fashion, like tell them that. Be like, hey, I teach in part of my sessions, or, part of the work that I do, or the service that I have, like when we are on a call, I expect you to be present with me, right? Set those up, because honestly, when they're reading through that, it's going to sink into them. And, you may have to, with certain people, you might have to go back and remind them. But the point is that you were clear and you outlined it to start with. People really, I know it's uncomfortable sometimes to be forward with people, but having and setting those direct boundaries are absolutely so helpful for you and your client. And it makes the client experience so much better, because then they know how to navigate with you, right? They know what you are looking for. and it gives them it gives them more assurance of what they're doing. And then you are also, by doing that, you are leading them right through the process of whatever service you're providing. Um, Also, your clients are the reason you are in business. So being intentional with your clients, communicating with your clients, being honest with them, tell them, if there is something that they are asking for that's not something that you're really willing to do, or it's not part of your contract, you are absolutely allowed to say, no, I'm sorry, but that's one, it's not in our contract. And two, you know, that's not something that I am an expert on. So you will have to learn that from someone else. And you can even give them, if you know someone, you can refer them, but feel free to just be honest with them about what it is that you are comfortable teaching or sharing or doing in your, be the leader. Um, this one is honestly so important. Um, this is something that I have started doing, and it has made a huge difference because I feel like I was, especially in the beginning of my business, you feel like you're getting all this information and you have no idea who to listen to. And you're trying to put together all of these random bits of information you're getting from like all of these, you know, posts online, videos on TikTok, all things, right? Because you're trying to learn, right? You're just absorbing it all because you're like, oh, I want to learn. But the thing is that every coach or every person who is giving out information, we'll even leave it like that. Anyone who's giving out information has a specific style and a specific way. And the reason why that stuff is working is because they have found the way to weave all of those pieces together. Okay, so when you're taking one random puzzle piece from this person and you're taking one random puzzle piece from this person and this and this and this, yes, you have a puzzle, but do the pieces actually fit together? Maybe, maybe not. And so listen, pick, one or two of your most aligned, like, person to learn from, especially if you're like looking for, marketing or, all of those things. Just pick two because there's nothing wrong with learning, but you need to definitely limit the amount of information you get because then you get overload, then you get confusion, and you don't stick with anything. And then you get so scattered, you don't actually follow through on any of the strategies. Okay. Because you're like, well, this strategy contradicts this one. Well, yeah, because it's not part of the overall puzzle. You're taking that, dinosaur puzzle piece and trying to put it into a fairy puzzle, and it's not working. Right. So it's okay. We just have to, you just have to learn how to really narrow your focus a little as far as who you're listening to and pick the ones that you really resonate, the ones that you're like, yeah, I just love them so much, right? You love their style, you love what they teach, you love all those things. So pick those two and mute everyone else. You don't have to unfollow them, but you can mute them. Like I think on Instagram, you can actually mute people. Um, and like I know there's, other apps you can like take breaks for people and that sort of thing. So use those tools to help you because having a limited number of coaches or having a limited number of like where you have one person, say you have one coach that you just absolutely love, or one person that you are just like, yes, this person is, you know, like they're kind of that future version of you to some degree, maybe not exact, but they have a life that they've achieved and gotten to those places where you want to be, right? You pick those two people and you just listen to them. You don't need to agree with everything they say, but you do need to listen and follow what they are saying. And this goes for if you are actually also in any kind of coaching container, just listen to the coach you're in the container with. I promise it will help. Okay. So this is going to be just a fun little breakdown of what your day can look like. Okay. So I want you to take this and I want you to rework this based off of your energy. I want you to do like a week of trial and error. Okay. So this is just going to be a fun little experiment. This doesn't have to be, doesn't have to be rigid or structured. It could just be fun, like make this fun. Try different stuff in your day and see when you pay attention and note when you have those fun, good days. Okay. Like when you're like, oh, I feel really light in this way. Or, oh, you know what? I felt better in the morning after I had a really good breakfast. Or, oh, that day I felt like I needed to take a walk and I did. And that walk really helped me. And there's nothing wrong with like adjusting all of this to your intuition too, right? Because there's going to be times when your intuition is going to be like, girl, you need a walk, right? Especially like, if you wake up and you're in a grumpy mood or something, and sometimes like, whatever it is for you that kind of like, helps you move, right? Sometimes it's like, oh, you know what, just go take a shower. You'll feel better. Like you feel so much better if you just go take a shower. Do those things too, but then also pay attention to where your energy, and because then you can be more proactive in your business as opposed to reactive, right? You're choosing when to harness your energy and when it is at its most potent. So you can actually come out of this with like one, feeling good, two, being actually productive on the things that you really need to get done, right? So if you really need to get some content creation done, pick the days of the week that feel really good to you. You're like, for whatever reasons, Wednesdays are my day. And also like being a woman, I tend to like that first week of my cycle, I feel like a powerhouse, right? With all of the testosterone. So I feel like I pump out so much content. I pump out, I record a bunch of videos in that first week and I spend so much time in that. So that's where you can get, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen the rest of your cycle, but I'm just saying like harness those moments where you're like, I feel, like you just feel like you could run a marathon or something. Maybe not literally, but you know what I mean? So, and then take those times too throughout your days to like do little check-ins with yourself. Journal for a little bit if you're kind of like, I feel off, something's wrong, like I'm just not sure what's going on. Take some time to like sit with yourself. It doesn't have to be complicated, but you need to be like curious and ask yourself, like, hey, what's going on? Why am I feeling like this? And bringing in that kind of depth. I actually do have a reminder that pops on my phone every day at 4 o'clock to do a heart check in. And it's also a reminder to drink more water. I have one in the morning too. Um, that is basically like the things that I'm kind of currently working on, right? So mine is like faith, working from love and authenticity. So it reminds me in the morning, like, okay, you're going to focus on your faith. You're going to focus on working in love. And by faith, I just mean like have faith that it's all going to work out, right? That, because obviously, I'm not religious. And most of the clients that I have are, deeply spiritual. So that word, I just meant that we were, having faith that it's all going to work out. Um, the then it's like the love and the authenticity. Okay. So I worked from authenticity. It's a reminder every day to be like, okay, make sure I'm showing up as who I am in my fullest. And the love is honestly not just love for, how I put out anything into the world, but also how I love myself, right? How I am being myself and those type of things. So this is just an easy little kind of way for you to walk through your day and mm, totally change this up. If obviously if you're a morning person, you're going to flip this whole thing and you're going to be like, yeah, we're going to do some focused work in the morning, right? And if you're more of like a midday or an afternoon person, you're going to do some more of the, you know, deeper work in that space when you have the energy for it. So just really hone in on play with this, see what your day feels like, what works, and you can schedule this out by day. And then, you can do the same for like even your week, and then you can expand even further into the long term, right? Which would be a month long. But I really want you to start with just like how you feel in your day. Okay. And then that is it for today. So next time we're going to be jumping into strategic stewardship and how you can really price more confidently. We're going to walk through intuitive offer refinement. We're going to be walking through a very simple strategy to kind of help you move into getting those clients on a regular basis with a very simple process. It doesn't have to be complicated. And yeah, so I hope this all was very helpful for you. Thank you for being here today. And again, do the subconscious journey. You can tap into that anytime you need it. It's going to be so potent for you. This is something that I've done with many, many of my clients, and it has absolutely helped them change the way they see themselves, how they show up in their business. And it is honestly one of my favorite things to do. So I hope you enjoy the journey, and I will see you in the next part, part 3.